They mocked Earth's tiny fleet, until they learned who built it. I remember the exact moment the laughter started. I was standing on the bridge of the UEN Prometheus, watching through the viewport as we dropped out of our jump corridor and entered the Araxes Nebula. The staging ground for the largest military operation in galactic history stretched out before us, and I had never felt so small in my entire life. 140,000 warships filled the nebula. Torvan dreadnoughts the size of continents drifted in perfect formation, their hulls covered in weapon arrays that could bend the fabric of space itself. Kavari carrier groups floated nearby, each one holding more fighter craft in a single bay than most species built in a century. Drenathi battlecruisers pulsed with energy shields so powerful they glowed blue against the darkness. These were the ships of the Torvan hegemony, an alliance of 9 elder species that had ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. Then there was us. 43 ships. That was the entire United Earth Navy. Every single vessel humanity had ever built for war, lined up in a neat little row behind my flagship. The Prometheus herself was barely the size of a Torvan cargo shuttle. Our largest vessel, the UEN Armstrong, would have fit inside one of their dreadnoughts' hangar bays with room to spare. The open-channel communications hit us almost immediately. I heard a Drenathi Commodore suggest that we be assigned to supply runs so we would not embarrass ourselves. A Kavari admiral simply refused to acknowledge our presence at all, as if pretending we did not exist would make it true. But the worst came from Grand Admiral Severeth himself, the supreme commander of the Hegemony fleet. During the War Council, broadcast to every ship in the Armada, he called our contribution a children's flotilla. He said it with a smile, and 140,000 ships heard it. My crew looked at me. Some of them were angry, some of them were embarrassed. I just stood there, hands behind my back, and waited for the laughter to die down. I was not angry. I had heard it all before. Every species we had ever encountered looked at us and saw the same thing. A young civilization, a small fleet. Tiny ships crewed by soft, short-lived creatures from a single unremarkable planet in a quiet arm of the galaxy. They measured us by the size of our vessels because that was the only measurement they understood. They never once asked what was inside them. The war had started 6 months before our arrival. The Velthari Dominion, an aggressive empire from the far side of the galaxy, had pushed into hegemony territory and refused to stop. Under ancient treaty, every spacefaring species in the region was required to contribute military forces. Earth could have sent a token force, maybe 5 or 10 ships, and no one would have complained. Instead, we sent everything, all 43, because if the Velthari won this war, Earth would be next, and we did not plan to face them alone. The elder species never understood why our fleet was so small. They assumed it was because we were poor, or primitive, or simply incapable of building more. The truth was something they had never considered. Our fleet was small on purpose. Humanity did not have the resources, the population, or the centuries of accumulated wealth to build giant warships. We never had. So our engineers did what human engineers have always done throughout our entire history. They solved the problem a different way. Every one of our 43 ships was a masterwork. The Prometheus carried a crew of just 200, but her onboard intelligence systems could manage every function of the vessel simultaneously, adapting and repairing in real time. Our hull plating used fractal armor composites that redistributed any impact force across the entire surface at once, making a ship the size of a frigate as difficult to destroy as something 50 times its mass. Our weapon systems included swarm-forge missile arrays, nano-fabrication units that built ammunition from harvested battlefield debris on the spot. We could never run out of things to shoot, but the real advantage, the one that changed everything, was the dimensional shunt drive. Our engines did not simply move fast. They folded space in ways the elder species had never imagined, allowing our ships to skip through compressed layers of reality. On conventional sensors, an Earth ship using its shunt drive simply vanished, and our neural sync command network linked every ship in the fleet into a single tactical mind. 43 ships, thinking, reacting, and fighting as one consciousness. We built these things not because we were geniuses. We built them because we had no other choice. Necessity is the only teacher that never lies. The Velthari struck first. 3,000 warships poured out of a hidden corridor and slammed into the hegemony's forward fleet, while the main force was still organizing. The elder species had powerful ships, but their command structures were slow. Their hierarchies were built on tradition and protocol, layers of approval and confirmation that turned minutes into hours. Ships started dying before the first order to engage was even confirmed. Grand Admiral Severeth ordered us to remain in the rear and observe. He did not want the children's flotilla getting in the way. I ignored him. The 43 ships of the United Earth Navy broke formation and dove straight into the heart of the Velthari assault. Every alien commander watching expected us to be destroyed in seconds. Some of them probably thought it was a mercy, that at least we would go out fighting instead of hiding. What happened instead was something none of them had ever seen before. We vanished. Every ship in the fleet engaged its dimensional shunt simultaneously, and we dropped off every sensor screen in the nebula. The Velthari could not target what they could not find. 3 seconds later, we reappeared inside their formation. Not in front of it, not behind it. Inside it. Between their capital ships, in the gaps of their shield networks, in the blind spots of their weapon arrays. Then we opened fire. I do not remember it as chaos. I remember it as geometry. The neural sync network fed targeting solutions directly into my awareness, and I could feel the entire fleet moving around me like extensions of my own body. Every missile was a calculated answer to a precise question. No wasted shots, no stray trajectories. 43 ships poured synchronized fire into the structural weak points of the Velthari formation with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. In 11 minutes, we destroyed or disabled 318 Velthari warships. We lost 0. The communications channel across the entire Hegemony Armada went completely silent. 140,000 ships, and not a single voice. The laughter was gone. In its place was something I had seen many times before in my career. It was the silence of someone realizing they have made a terrible mistake. Grand Admiral Severeth contacted me directly after the battle. His face filled my view screen, and the arrogance I had seen in the War Council was completely gone. He did not congratulate me. He did not praise our tactics. He asked me one simple question. What are you? I told him the truth. Not about the technology, about the people. I explained what he and every elder species had missed. The Torvan had been building ships for 12,000 years, but they built them the same way they always had. Their designs were refined, yes, polished over millennia, but fundamentally unchanged. They had never needed to reinvent themselves because they had never been desperate enough to try. Humans had only been in space for 200 years, but before that, we spent 10,000 years on a single planet, fighting for survival every single day. We fought each other. We fought disease. We fought famine and drought and natural disasters that could wipe out entire civilizations overnight. And through all of it, we built. We adapted. We solved problems that should have ended us, because giving up was never something our species knew how to do. The engineers who designed the Prometheus were the descendants of people who split the atom, broke the sound barrier, and put human beings on the moon, using computers less powerful than a children's toy. They came from a lineage of builders who mapped the human genome, created global communication networks out of sand and electricity, and learned to harness the power of stars. Every war, every plague, every catastrophe was a forge that produced sharper minds and better solutions. You have had 12,000 years of peace and plenty, I told Severeth. We have had 10,000 years of struggle. Every one of those ships out there is built by a species that has never once had the luxury of doing things the easy way. He stared at me for a long time after that. Then he asked me to lead the next assault. The war changed after that day. Earth's fleet became the tip of every major operation. The alien admirals stopped giving us orders and started requesting our help. We fought at the Shen Corridor, where we turned an asteroid field into a weapon by seeding the rocks with propulsion cores and steering them into the enemy fleet. We held Kellerak Station, where a single Earth frigate faced 40 destroyers alone for 9 hours by cycling its dimensional shunts so fast that it appeared to be in 6 places at once. We executed Operation Midnight Garden, slipping undetected into the Velthari home base and shutting down their entire command network for 3 days. The elder species began asking for technical exchanges. The same civilizations that had called us primitive now wanted to understand how our ships worked. We shared everything freely. We had no secrets. But the blueprints alone were not enough. It was never about the technology. It was about the way humans think, the willingness to look at an impossible problem and see it as just another puzzle, waiting for a clever answer. That mindset could not be copied from a diagram. It had to be earned through centuries of necessity. The war reached its final crisis when the Velthari deployed their last and greatest weapon, a vessel the size of a small moon, called a Worldbreaker, designed for one purpose only: to crack planets open, like eggs. It moved toward Araxis Prime, the hegemony's capital world, and every weapon the elder species threw at it bounced off its shields like rain off stone. Severeth called me. No pretense, no formality. Just a question. Can you stop it? I said yes. Our fleet, now reduced to 38 ships after months of fighting, did something no elder species would have ever conceived. We did not attack the Worldbreaker from outside. We let it swallow us. Using our dimensional shunts, we phased through its shields and hull, and rematerialized inside the weapon itself, in the vast caverns and corridors of its internal structure. Then the swarm forges went to work. But this time, they were not building missiles. They were taking the Worldbreaker apart from the inside, converting its own structure into inert dust, eating the most powerful weapon in the galaxy alive from within. I stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, floating inside a cathedral of alien metal, and watched the walls dissolve around us, as human nanomachines disassembled the greatest instrument of destruction ever built. It did not die with an explosion. It died with a long, slow groan, as it collapsed in on itself, undone by 38 tiny ships, and the sheer stubbornness of the species that built them. The Velthari surrendered the next day. When the Conclave of Nine gathered to honor the species that had won the war, they called Earth's name, and 140,000 ships activated their running lights in unison. It was the Galactic Naval Salute, the highest honor in hegemony history. It had not been performed in 4,000 years. Severeth stood before the full assembly and said what every elder species was finally willing to admit. We measured them by the size of their fleet. We should have measured them by the depth of their minds. I stood alone on the bridge of the Prometheus that night and looked out at the stars. I thought about the engineers on Titan, the programmers in Nairobi, the physicists beneath the Alps, the thousands of ordinary human beings who had built 43 impossible ships because nobody had ever told them it could not be done. That is what makes us different. Not strength, not numbers, not even intelligence. It is the refusal to accept any wall as permanent. Every barrier is a problem, every problem has a solution, and every solution is a door to something bigger. They mocked our fleet because it was small. They will never make that mistake again, not because they fear us now, but because they finally understand what we are. We are the species that looked at the stars and said not far enough. We are the species that broke every limit the universe placed in front of us, not because we were chosen to, but because we chose to. We are engineers, we are builders, we are human, and we are only getting started.